So there are a whole bunch, we have 6 different broad project areas. So when we talk about project areas, these are specific topics, or not specific, but broad topics that you might want to learn about or that you might want to explore. And so I've got a full book full of these little hot sheets, as we call them, with information about each one of these different project areas. So the main 6 project areas that we have are ag and natural resources, animals, creative arts, family and consumer science, personal development, and then science, engineering, and technology. So those are the 6 areas that we have for project areas. Within each of those project areas are more categories that fall under each of those. So for example, if I would go to creative arts, I've got my little book here that I have all my sheets with, my hard copy of everything. There are a few different areas within creative arts. So that would be digital storytelling, music, photography, and visual arts. And I did do a live video about this a few months ago, I think, I don't know, beginning of March or something. So I will share that with you guys too. So you can always go back and watch it. And I'll put this on Facebook somewhere so you guys can all find the information about each of these different project areas. So I will be posting this information and sharing it all with you at a later time this week, so that if you missed part of it or if you have questions about where you can find it online, you'll have it all together. So going back to our project areas, there are the 6 main project areas, and then within each of those project areas are more specific areas. So like I had said, with the creative arts area, there's photography, music, digital storytelling, and visual arts. Now, visual arts is a very popular project area for a lot of people. So just to give you guys kind of a few ideas of what you would possibly bring to the fair or learn about with visual arts, I'll share with you a few things that I have seen and that are listed here on this sheet if you need some ideas. So some visual art ideas would be making an original artwork. So maybe out of charcoal or watercolor, or maybe you're just coloring it, drawing it freestyle. Making a portfolio of all the different things that you've done throughout the year. So maybe in art class, you drew a lot of things and you want to show that all off. So you put it in a portfolio together. Making a display or maybe a poster about the different techniques when drawing. You could make a report about an art museum that you went to, make a display or a poster about the different design elements, or maybe demonstrate mixing colors, stuff like that. So really any artwork would fall under this visual arts area. And like I said, it is a very popular topic for a lot of our 4-Hers. So then, as you guys might kind of know, you hear the word projects a lot, and you also hear the word exhibits a lot. So a lot of times we use them as kind of the same thing, but they are different. So a project relates more to that broad project area. So that topic that you want to learn about and explore throughout the year. And an exhibit would be something that you would bring to the fair, something that you made or showed, or could share what you learned about that area. So we do have another sheet, real quick sheet put together for this. It's a little blurry, but you guys can see it a little bit about what's the difference between a project area and an exhibit. So your project area is that broad topic that you want to learn about and can explore. So for example, that would be maybe your swine project area, or sewing or woodworking. So you could practice goal setting and planning and managing responsibilities related to that area. You could learn about the materials and equipment needed for a project like that. An exhibit or a 4-H exhibit is something that you can exhibit at the fair. So your project area would be swine, your exhibit would be showing at the county fair. So that's kind of the difference between the two. But like I said, we do use them a little bit as the same thing, but they are different. Let me grab a drink of water here quick. So the next thing I want to go over is your general exhibit information form, or your goal sheet, or your write-up, whatever term you use to call it. And that is the thing that you would bring to fair with you. So for us, we have it in this green color. You guys can see it a little bit. This is what you would bring with your exhibit to the county fair when you're talking to a judge. So your first question on it is, what did you plan to learn or do? So what is your goal? So when you decided to learn about this project area and make this exhibit, why did you do it? Why did you want to learn about that? So for example, like if you decided to make some banana bread, let's just say for an example, and you brought that to the fair, why did you decide to make banana bread? And what did you learn while doing that? So you could say you decided to make banana bread because you wanted to learn about a healthy snack for your family and your siblings. So then the second question that you would put on your write-up or your general exhibit information form, what steps did you plan, or what steps did you take to learn or to do this? So while you were doing your project and your exhibit and putting it together, what steps did you take? So was your first step deciding on the type of bread to make? Was it looking through different recipes? Then did you try a few different recipes and experiment with the recipe? So that would be kind of the steps that you took in order to get a final product for that exhibit. And then of course, what were the most important things that you learned? So when you made your exhibit and you have your final product there, what did you end up learning about it? Was it how easy or hard it is to make this project or something like that? So yeah, that's a little bit about the general sheet. One last thing on the exhibit sheet or the write-up that you would bring with you to fair is if you are doing clothing, home improvement, or visual arts, sometimes the judge likes to see a design element and art principles that were used in your project. So this write-up, as you get older, it's going to be a lot more detailed and a lot more in depth. So obviously, if you're a first-year member, fourth grader, you're just going to have probably your basic standard answers. If you are a sophomore in high school, you're going to want to have pretty detailed answers about how you did all of this and what your goals were, because the judges will be looking for a little bit more from you. So for the clothing and home improvement and visual arts, they typically like you guys to add at least one design element and art principle to your project and to your write-up here. So again, we've got a little help sheet for that. Here is our design elements and principles. So there are a few different design elements for your projects. So these are lines, shapes, colors, textures, and spaces. So you could talk about all sorts of, or one of those things that you had in your project. So for example, lines. So did you have like horizontal lines, dotted lines, zigzags, curved, straight, whatever? So like, I'm trying to think of an example for you guys that has to deal with elements and principles of design. So let's say you sewed a dress or a shirt or something together and you made that and sewed it yourself. So what were some of these designs that you tried to put into that dress? So was it a curved neckline? Was it a straight shoulder or something like that? So those are just some of the ways that you could incorporate that into your write-up. Another very popular project area for 4-H is food and nutrition. So we have all the things to help you with that. I know I keep telling you guys about this form that we have, and there's a lot, so I'm going to put it all together for you again, and I will send it out after this so you can review it a little bit more in depth and in specific to what area you want to learn about. So this one is called the Foods for Iowa 4-H Fairs. It's a quick reference guide that goes through some of the food that you might bring to the fair and what's good to bring and what's not so good to bring. And this was just updated this year, so it's pretty new and has the most updated information. So this goes through your preserved foods, so like your jams and jellies, and like your pickles and relishes, honey, maple syrup, some of that. It also goes through your baked goods and confections. So some examples of this would be pies, pastries, candies, cakes, quick breads or yeast breads, cookies, and frostings. So it goes through some of the things that you want to bring and some of the things that probably aren't very acceptable to bring to the fair. And this also goes for some of the food and nutrition projects at the state fair. So I'm going to give you an example of this sheet. Again, this is the Foods for Iowa 4-H Fairs quick reference guide about some of the foods that are acceptable or unacceptable to bring to the fair, and will help you when the judge is talking to you and to help you know what the judge is looking for. So I think I'm going to go to cookies. I think a lot of people do cookies and bars and bring those to the fair. So some acceptable examples of cookies and bars. So that would be like brownies or scotcheroos, no-bake cookies that don't contain flour, dropped cookies, rolled, pressed, black bean brownies. Some of those would be good examples to bring. Unacceptable examples of cookies and bars would be any item that requires refrigeration after baking or preparing. And then, of course, edible cookie dough is also not acceptable. And for each of these different areas on this sheet, they have some little notes to help you when you're considering making different food. So for example, with your cookies and bars, some of the notes that they have along with it is that all doughs containing flour and eggs must be baked. So just keep that in mind when you are preparing for fair and an exhibit that you might want to bring with you. So the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is your record book. I think some of you probably know what a record book is, but for those of you who don't, a record book is basically a binder that you guys will put together after fair, or maybe even now and during fair, that you put all your information into. So usually has a cover like this, just a blank piece 4-H paper with your club and your name, and you get to keep it. And then each year you put in some of the projects that you did, some of the things that you worked on, some pictures from the year, maybe pictures with your club and different friends from 4-H and during fair. And I think these books are a really cool example to keep and to put together, because for one thing, after you're done with 4-H, so after you graduate and you're done with 4-H, you have potentially 12 years, depending on when you joined, years worth of work that you get to look back on and kind of see how you grew and how you learned. And another thing that you can kind of do with your record book is you can look back on last year's projects and see how you can grow from that. So last year you learned about making banana bread. Well, next year, how can I learn about a different type of bread, or whatever your project area is? So it's a good way to help see how you're growing throughout 4-H. And it's just kind of fun to always look back on the pictures. I know I was in 4-H as a kid as well. And so I think we still have our record books laying around the house, and all of my siblings. I just looked through mine the other day, and I actually found like some old newsletters in there. And they're just a really fun memory to keep and look back on. So yeah, so your record book, it seems like it can be pretty daunting, like there's a lot of work to it. I'm going to go through quick some of the things that you should put in it, and hopefully that'll help you when putting it together. So each year has kind of its own little tab and its own section. So you'll label a section with the year. That's how you want to start. And then within that year, you'll start with like a cover page and a photo of yourself. So what that year was, and then a photo of yourself so you can remember what you looked like that year. And then you will start with a self-evaluation. So this is what your self-evaluation will look like. A little hard to see, but I'll read through it quick. It has 6 questions on it, and it basically just asks you how you think you did on that question throughout the year. So and it goes over your record keeping skills. So one thing it asks you, how did you do on your record keeping skills for keeping information organized? Did you do your best? Did you do just okay? Could you do better? Or do you need help with this? And it just has 6 questions just like that. And you just have to put a check mark next to the thing that you think you did. So again, another question is, I kept financial records if needed. Did you do just okay on that, or do you need help with that? So it's a really quick sheet to put together. Just has 6 questions in there about how you think you did throughout that year. And then as you're planning for the next year, maybe you can look back on this and say, okay, I didn't do so well with keeping organized. I can work on that for this year. The next thing that you will put in there is a yearly summary. So here is your yearly summary. And this is pretty easy too. What did you do throughout that year? So it goes through your 4-H participation. So how many club meetings did you attend? Did you go to any state events? Did you go to any other county workshops like this? And then you list like your ribbons that you made throughout the year or that you won throughout the year. List any communication projects that you were involved in. So did you give a talk to your club or a presentation at your club meeting? And it also asks a few of your responsibilities at home and in your community and at school. So real easy to fill out, and just kind of asks a few questions about what your year was like and what you did throughout the year in 4-H and outside of 4-H. And then the back just lists, you can list all the different project areas that you were involved with. So what areas did you bring to the fair with you, and or what areas did you just want to learn about that year? So those are the 2 main things when putting together your record book. The next is a project area record. So this is a basic form, and we have different forms depending on how old you are or what your age is and grade. So your 4th through 6th graders are going to have a basic form. Your 7th through 9th graders will have another one, and then your 10th through 12th graders will have a different form, all just a little bit more detailed than the next, depending on how old you are. So that's what this looks like. These are specific to the project areas that you brought with you or that you learned about throughout the year. So I'm going to stick with my food and nutrition project area. So I would basically fill out this form based on that specific area. Now, let's say you brought 2 different exhibits to the fair about food and nutrition. You would only have to fill this form out once for that entire project area. You could fill it out for each exhibit if you wanted to, but you only need to really fill it out once. So this form is talking about that specific project, that project area. So what was your goal at the beginning of the year? What did you want to learn about it? During the year, what did you do to learn about these things? So during the year, again, what was your favorite part of the project area? What did you learn? And then listing any recognition or awards that you won in relation to that specific project area. And the back just has a few questions again, like how you did, how you think you did with it. Did you do okay? Could you have worked harder on this? Something like that. So yeah, that's just another part of your record book. We also have those for, you would also fill those out for livestock because that is a project area. And then each project, not each project area, some of the project areas have specific worksheets to fill out along with that. So your photography has a separate sheet to fill out along with that. Your livestock, so your market and your breeding animals both have separate forms to fill out along with this, along with this project area sheet. So this kind of just lists all the details of your project. Maybe what you bought it starting out at, how much it weighed to begin with, and then like just their ID information, their tag number, all of that. And it has some information about how much maybe money you spent on it throughout the year, like how much feed did you buy, stuff like that. And it kind of just goes through that whole thing of raising livestock. So in the office, I do have a little help sheet for you guys, and it is on our website. I did forget to mention that. On the Dubuque County 4-H website page, off to the right-hand side, I believe it is, there is a gray bar, and it says record bookkeeping forms. And so all of these forms that I've just talked about are off to that side there, and they're pretty much in order of how you would put them in your book. Also off to that same side in the gray bar has all the fair forms. So if you're looking for your fair sheet, your fair exhibit sheet, goal sheet, we also have that on the website too. So we do have this help document. So if you're wondering, okay, you just talked through all of this, but I can't remember what you just said I needed for my record book. I have this help sheet here to tell you exactly what you need. So first thing is a cover page. We talked about that. It includes your picture and your name and your grade and how many years you've been in 4-H. Second thing is that self-evaluation. Third thing is the yearly summary that we just went through that talks about like basically how your year went and what you participated in 4-H. Fourth thing would be the project record that goes over that specific project record that you learned about. The next steps would be either that added photography sheet or the added livestock project records. If you took photography or if you took livestock, you would also add that in there. And then the last thing is just anything else you want to add in there. If you want to add in any newspaper articles that you were in, any pictures that you took of you and your club members throughout the year, anything. Kind of think of it as a scrapbook for yourself. And that's kind of what your record book is like. Do you guys have questions about record books and how they work or what you need in them? So what you do with your record book, and honestly, it might be a good idea to start working on them now. So if you know you're gonna for sure bring a specific exhibit to the fair, or if you know you wanna really learn about photography or food nutrition or whatever your project area is, you could get some of these record keeping or record book forms and just kind of keep them and take notes on them throughout the summer as you're working on your exhibits. So then kind of what we do with these record books is, for one thing, they're, like I said before, they're good for you. They kind of help you keep track of your year, but then you give them to your leader to review, and she just looks over them, make sure you have the papers in there that you need. If you want to get judged on them and get an extra little medallion for your record books, you can also do that. So I have got a record book award application. It's real simple, basically just your name and what project area you want to apply for. So if you apply for a record book award, you would turn your book into me at the extension office. I have volunteers who have some judging sheets, and they review them and they judge them based off of the information that we just went through, whether you have your self-evaluation in there, do you have pictures in there, do you have your project sheets in there. It has all of that in there and goes through some of the questions that you should probably make sure you answer in your record book. And then if you have all those forms with you, we'll give you an award for it. It's really cool. I don't think, I should have gotten an example out for you guys, but we give you this green board and then a little pin that goes onto these boards for each record book area that you win. So it's just an extra little thing. But if you don't want to get judged, you don't have to. So yeah, that's kind of it in my little information about record books. I know that seems like a lot of information that we just went through. Again, I'll send this out to you guys after the fact so you can review it and have all the links. I do have copies here at the Extension office of all of these forms if you ever want to pick them up. Yeah, anyone else have questions? Otherwise, that is all that I have for you guys. And hopefully in the fall, we can do another record book workshop so that way I can have you come to the office and we can physically do your projects or not your projects, we can physically do your record books and put those forms together. All right, well, I think that's about it. So thank you guys for joining. I know there is only a couple of us and I think only a couple watched on Facebook. But hey, as much as I can help anyone, I am sure willing to. And again, hopefully in the fall, I'll be able to meet with you guys in person and we can actually go through some of this and write it out together so that you're not just doing it alone.